Ravens and Dolphins just hours away as we're getting ready to start week 10. Welcome to the show, everybody. All of you watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Let's rock and roll. All right, week 9 is out of here. We don't miss it. Week 10 is going to be so much better, right? Screw week 9, the worst.
Why are you
week
so
10,
upset?
I'm not. It just was boring. It was just boring, snooze fest of a week, you know?
I thought week 9 was my least favorite week ever. And I woke up this morning and I got a little bit more affection for week 9 because and I call it my home league, and Jamie thinks that's funny. But my home league, I was 9-0 going into week 9. We have a doubleheader week, and I lost by 0.4 points to lose my undefeated season. And this morning I woke up to a Brian Burns sack stat correction and got a victory. 10-0.
That
love this game.
Awesome. That is awesome. And Mac Jones couldn't even prevent that. How about that? So good job, Brian Burns. Okay, we got the Dolphins and the Ravens tonight. We'll update you on the quarterback situation there for the Dolphins, the wide receiver situation for the Ravens. We got a bunch of news and notes. The games we're looking at today, Buffalo at the Jets. Sneaky, interesting game, I think, from a fantasy standpoint. What do you guys think? No, not
sneaky. It's
yeah. Thank you. One
for
more
like 2 players.
One more bad game from the Bills offense, and it's going to be Chiefs alert because they got the Chiefs treatment last week, and it worked very well. So we'll see what happens.
Have the Chiefs had a game as bad as scoring 6 points against Jacksonville?
Well, the Titans game, I would say. I don't know how many they scored, but I think they might have scored 6.
Giants game was bad, but it was 20 points.
Giants game was terrible. The Titans, they lost 27-3. Worse. Bam.
Is 3 against the Titans worse than 6 against Jacksonville?
I don't know.
Where was the game?
It was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. All right, other games. Let's go through it real quick here. Other games today. Cleveland, New England. Detroit, Pittsburgh. Got a fun DeAndre Swift stat for you. Jacksonville, Indianapolis. New Orleans, Tennessee. Minnesota at the Chargers. And Kansas City at Las Vegas Sunday night. That's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game. Well, Jamie, why don't you tell us who the start of the week is? Who do we love this week?
Speaking of Jacksonville, Carson Wentz. As far as what he said, I hope everything goes well with the birth of a child, but he's expecting his second child any day now. So he says he's going to play and miss the birth process if that happens at the same time. But obviously that's something that would be a problem. But again, hopefully everything's healthy and fine for his family. And he goes out and puts on a show against Jacksonville. 24 more fantasy points in 3 straight games, 20 or more fantasy points in 6 straight games, excuse me. And the quarterbacks who have beat up on this Jacksonville defense, it's a very stellar group. You have Tyrod Taylor, Geno Smith, Tua, and who's the other schlub that did it as well?
Against Jacksonville?
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 guys. Burrow also did it, but there's a 5th one. What am I missing on his name?
You got Tyrod Taylor, Bridgewater.
There you go. So Bridgewater, Taylor, Tua, and Geno Smith. I hope Carson Wentz is as good, if not better, than those guys.
I'm glad you brought him up. I wanted to talk about Wentz kind of long-term because you look at this stretch, kind of feel like it's the luckiest stretch, right? His last 6 games, he scored 20 or more points in every game, 24 or more in 4 of them. But he's completing 65% of his passes. The yards per attempt is solid, 7.8. He's only throwing 32.3 passes per game. I feel like it's the touchdowns have really saved him. And I looked at the Houston game. It was kind of disappointing. He barely threw. I mean, are you worried about game script and then blowing them out or anything like that? And
I mean, there's obviously that potential, but I still think he'll get over the 20-point threshold. That I'm pretty comfortable with that. Just based on what we see. He did it in the rain against San Francisco. So I hope Jacksonville's look. The Colts defense is terrible. So I still expect, especially if James Robinson plays, that the Jaguars will have some semblance of an offense this week. And so, if they're scoring like the Jets did, then I think we'll see the Colts offense continue to hum.
Okay, I'm doing a Twitter poll here. If you were a starting NFL quarterback and your wife was giving birth on Sunday, would you play this week? Option A, yes, I'm playing. B, no, I'll be with my wife. And I actually asked this question to my wife yesterday, and she would not let me play. I would not be starting this week.
Well,
I would imagine if your salary was different and your job was different.
I don't think so. I think I'd have to quit the job and be
well, I think that,
you
but
quit
that's
the job as the quarterback.
That's the question.
I don't think I
You
have
missed option C. You missed option C.
What's that?
It's not my call. Like option A, I'm deciding to play. Option B, I'm deciding to go there. Option C, it's her decision.
It's not
That's
my call.
her.
All right, who do you love, Heath? Who do you love?
James Conner. Like maybe it seems a little bit obvious, but I've got him number 4, I believe, in one format, number 5 in another. Just absolutely love his role without Chase Edmonds. They just went to throwing to him right away, and he's got experience in that role. He looks like maybe he has the same role he had early in Pittsburgh. Wouldn't be surprised to see 20 to 25 touches, which includes 3 or 4 catches. We know he's going to be the red zone guy. Absolutely. James Conner has gone from he's scoring too many touchdowns. He's really not going to be able to keep this up to top 5 running back.
Yeah. And facing Carolina should be a positive game script for him as well. All right, players to avoid. Heath, kick it off. Who are we avoiding?
I had a hard time finding guys to say that I wanted to sit, but I am really, really scared about Antonio Gibson. Just because of what we saw the last time he played and what we've seen happen to his touches and his snap share over the last 3 weeks. Now, the one thing, and I've brought this up before, and I don't know because I've not seen anything about it, is I don't know if this is an injury that they think can get better through the season while he's playing and practicing on it. And if it is, then maybe there's some hope there. But I think at this point, I'm going to have to see it from Antonio Gibson before I'm going to trust him. His snap share has been at 42% or lower each of his last 3 games. It was at least 55% in every game before that. We know this Tampa Bay defense you can't really run on, which even if Gibson was healthy, we'd have some fear this turns into the J.D. McKissick game. Now, when we don't even know if he's getting all of the early downs work, it's just terrifying to me. I don't want to start Gibson.
You know, Heath, I want to follow up on something we talked about yesterday with the schedule analysis in Tampa Bay. Their run defense hadn't been quite as good, and I had forgotten Lavonte David missed 2 games, and that was the Bears game. Herbert had 100 yards, and the Eagles game. Miles Sanders had 9 for 56. He came back against the Saints, and Alvin Kamara averaged 3.2 yards per carry. So I think that may have been the missing ingredient there, why they struggled a little bit for those 2 games without Lavonte David. Jamie, who are you avoiding?
I would like to avoid Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Obviously, Patrick has to play, so that would make it easy to avoid him if he doesn't. But he didn't practice on Wednesday. But you've seen now Sutton in 2.5 games with Jerry Jeudy on the field. You know what this Eagles defense is. They keep everything in front of them. So if he's not going to be able to make plays down the field and the targets aren't there for him, then I would be sitting Cortland Sutton across the board.
How you feeling about the waiver wire guys this week? Thinking about Dearness Johnson potentially. Is he a must start?
Must start. Not even close.
Devin Singletary a must start?
Absolutely.
Here's the thing I really struggle with.
I'm sorry, but clearly it's got to be if the other guys are out.
Right. That's what I'm really struggling with is those 2 and the 2 backs tonight.
Yeah.
Because like I think if we get through the day and we haven't heard anything about Nick Chubb, then his odds get quite a bit lower. And if we get through Thursday's practice and Zach Moss doesn't practice, most of these guys that we've seen come through the concussion protocol, I think they've at least been limited by Thursday if they're going to play. So hopefully we get some more information. But right now, I feel really uncomfortable sitting Gaskin or Freeman to start Johnson or Singletary.
I think if I'm not mistaken, the Browns promoted somebody off their practice squad, a running back off their practice squad. So that's probably an indication that Nick Chubb is out, or Felton, one of the 2. Could be one of the 2.
Yeah.
So the fact that they made a running back transaction is not a good sign.
I shouldn't call those guys the waiver wire guys because they were not available in most leagues, but they obviously have entered the starting discussion. And we'll talk more about, I guess, like we do every Friday, the replacement running backs and how we feel about them. All season long, we're playing the Fantasy Football Today Start Sit Challenge. You can go to cbssports.com/start sit to play. Really no reason not to do that. This is like a little questionnaire. Who are you going to start? Each week, answer 10 starter sit questions to win a customized Trophy Smack championship belt. And they do awesome stuff, by the way, Trophy Smack. And you can get your name engraved on it. The overall winner for the 2021 season wins $1,000 and a guest appearance on the podcast. So one question this week is Tyler Higbee. Oh, it's Triple H. Tyler Higbee, Hunter Henry, or Austin Hooper? Half PPR. Higbee, Henry, Hooper. Who do you like?
Higbee.
This whole Tyler Higbee thing is really, I think we're going to have a discussion about it on FFT on HQ. It's really challenging my belief in volume and playing time because he's just not doing anything. I've got Henry one spot higher.
All right. So yeah, Tyler Higbee is becoming like the king of the almost touchdown, whereas Hunter Henry is the king of the actual touchdown. Those do count for more points. News and notes. The Vikings seem to be preparing for Dalvin Cook to play this week. That's what they are indicating. We'll keep an eye on it. They're at the Chargers. Keenan Allen missed practice. Wednesday missed practices are sometimes nothing. That's hopefully the case with Keenan Allen. But good news for the Chargers. Asante Samuel practiced. Looks like he's going to play cornerback there. Like they had one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. Went to Philadelphia last week without 2 starting cornerbacks. And even though only 17 pass attempts, you saw what Devontae Smith did. He had the best game basically by a wide receiver. So they could get one of those two starting corners back this week. That's the Chargers. Meanwhile, Chris Godwin missed practice, Jamie, and this one isn't just a veteran rest day. It could be serious here. You might not have Godwin. You might not have Brown. You might not have Gronk. What's the situation looking like for the Buccaneers against Washington?
Yeah, well, in terms of Gronk, the Darren Fells signing is not good because why would they add a third tight end when they have the other 2 guys already there? So probably going to be without Gronk for a few weeks. I asked Heath this question on the show yesterday on FFT. Are you dropping Gronk? And I think that's a tough decision a lot of people might have to make because if he's not on IR, he's just eating up a roster spot for you, which could be for another several weeks. I'm still hopeful Godwin's going to play. Bruce Arians said wait and see on his status. So hopefully he's fine. But you should be picking up Tyler Johnson if you have a roster spot just in case, because if there is no Antonio Brown, if there is no Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller is not a guarantee to return. He's still in the window to return after being activated off IR, but it's not official. So Tyler Johnson could be a very nice sleeper, a good flyer in deeper leagues. I picked him up in a few leagues myself, just with the hope of, not the hope, but in the event that Chris Godwin is out, Brady's not stopping throwing, and it's a good matchup against Washington.
Yeah, Tyler Johnson had 5 catches for 65 yards on 6 targets in Week 8 at New Orleans. One other name, Heath. What do you think about O.J. Howard if Godwin, Brown, and Gronk are out?
I think he should be good, but the roles for him and Cameron Brate, even without Gronk and without Antonio Brown, have just been really hit or miss. So we talked about Higbee and Hunter Henry. I'm still going to start those guys over Howard, and I don't have either of those guys in my top 15 tight ends. So,
yeah, okay. Alvin Kamara missed practice at Tennessee. We'll keep an eye on it.
That one has me just a little bit concerned as well, especially since they were working out running backs earlier in the week.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
They signed one. They signed Josh Adams to the practice squad. So NFL Network said it's a minor knee injury for Kamara, but still, I'm with Heath. If Mark Ingram's available in your leagues, pick him up now, please.
Odell Beckham is looking at the Packers, the Chiefs, and the Saints. Hopefully we'll be deciding soon. The Patriots are also interested there. So we'll get Beckham news and probably have to do a bonus podcast. That'll be fun. Noah Fant is practicing. Tim Patrick, as Jamie alluded to, has a knee injury, but so does Albert O. Kyler Murray is making great progress. He's optimistic about Sunday's game. Here are a couple of running backs, but he might not have DeAndre Hopkins, and Rondale Moore has a concussion. So they're pretty beat up. A couple of running backs were designated to return from IR, which means they have 3 weeks to play, 3 weeks to be activated, and that would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Chris Carson. Green Bay activated David Bakhtiari, their starting left tackle, off the PUP list. Hopefully he plays this week against Seattle. Detroit claimed wide receiver Josh Reynolds. All right, let's get some bigger stuff here. Chase Claypool week to week with a toe injury. Mike White is going
to Washington. Go get him.
James Washington or Tyler Johnson?
So I would probably look long-term, maybe Washington, just because it sounds week to week, but it's also Detroit. So Washington might have a bigger opportunity. So right now, I'd probably pick up Washington first. But if we get to the end of the week, I might change my mind and go Johnson if Godwin's out.
Okay. Corey Davis is going to play. Mike White is going to start for the Jets against the Bills. Probably not going to have Latavius tonight. He's doubtful, but Sammy Watkins is likely to play. Tua is questionable, but they are preparing for Jacoby Brissett. So, Heath, let's just sum up the Ravens-Dolphins game one more time. Your thoughts on Rashad Bateman now that it looks like Sammy Watkins is going to play?
Complete boom bust flex. Really no expectation of a floor for me for Bateman, but there is an opportunity for him to catch a touchdown pass. I expect Lamar Jackson to completely light it up against Miami, so there should be opportunities for wide receivers, but I don't have a great deal of confidence that Bateman's going to play way ahead of Sammy Watkins. I think they might kind of mess each other up.
And since it looks like Jacoby Brissett is going to start as of right now, Jalen Waddle or Courtland Sutton?
Waddle by a mile for me.
Yeah, it's Waddle. I like Waddle as a borderline number 2, and Sutton's more of a number 3.
Okay. I just dropped Jacoby Brissett in our 2 QB league. I was going to offer him to you, but
to me,
yeah, you have Mahomes, so I just figured maybe you'd want an upgrade there. But I dropped him. Okay, so what else we got here? Sam Darnold out at least 4 weeks. No timetable for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Logan Thomas had some soreness earlier this week. Let's hope he can work through that and play. T.Y. Hilton was expected to practice yesterday. Looks like he's trending in the right direction. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both missed practice, so that's the big one that we're looking at, and we're previewing that game later, New England and Cleveland. DeAndre Hopkins missed practice as mentioned. Rondell Moore, concussion protocol. Think he's in the concussion protocol. I wasn't sure about that.
He is in the concussion protocol.
Okay, thank you. Jamal Williams coming off the bye. He's still missing practice, so he may not play at Pittsburgh. Dawson Knox back at practice. CeeDee Lamb had a terrible game in Week 9 because Week 9 sucked. He said his ankle was bothering him, but he's good now. And James Robinson missed practice. You might not want to drop Carlos Hyde just yet. Well, if you need him. But Urban Meyer did think that Robinson was going to play, so hopefully he makes some progress during the week. Quick schedule alert. It won't matter to you, but if you have Najee Harris, you should be excited. His next 5 opponents are against teams that rank 31st, 30th, 22nd, 23rd, and 20th against running backs. Start Najee Harris. Let's do some 60-second rankings disputes. Kirk Cousins has been frustrating lately. And boy, Clint Kubiak is under fire as Minnesota's offensive coordinator. But Heath, you've still got Cousins 7th. Jamie, last check, you had him 15th.
Yep.
All right. Heath, you say start Kirk Cousins. Go.
I'm going to be the guy who adjusts the rankings just a little bit. I did drop him down to 9th. I've got him a big cluster of quarterbacks in that 7 through 13 range. And it's been a little bit frustrating for Cousins, but the pass volume's still mostly been there. And I don't think, for me at least, this matchup is not one that I'm adjusting my quarterback rankings. Or I'm adjusting his projections. I've got him at 37, 38 pass attempts. The efficiency's been good. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game for the season. Mostly, I think the disagreement is with 3 big-name quarterbacks that nobody else probably wants to sit, but I'm starting Cousins over. That's Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Kyler Murray. I'm a little bit concerned about a little bit of rust for all 3. And for Murray, even more than rust, just the fact that he's a pocket passer now.
Jamie, you're saying try to sit Kirk Cousins, 15th.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bad month. He's got 2 games over 15 fantasy points in his last 5. One of them was saved by a rushing touchdown last week, which was his first of the season. His last 2 games, he's been under 200 yards passing. He's facing a team that's very good against quarterbacks. You've seen it now time and time again. And like you said, they're getting healthier in the back end of their defense. And so Cousins is he's fine if you don't want to make a transaction, but I don't love him this week. I would 1,000 billion trillion gazillion whatever number you want to put on it, start Russell Wilson over him and Aaron Rodgers over him by far. Not even close. Kyler Murray is a different story, but Russell Wilson, there's no chance I'm playing Kirk Cousins over him. He may be better, but there's no chance I'm sitting Kirk Cousins against the Packers. And there's no way in bleeping tarnation I'm sitting Aaron Rodgers for Kirk Cousins in this return this week against that Seattle defense.
I was going to not say this because I didn't want Adam to get mad at me, but I'm going to say it now. Kirk Cousins is averaging more fantasy points per game than Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson.
This again. All right, fine. You know what? If it was just meant to get me mad, mission accomplished. Well done. How about Eli Mitchell? Now you both have him as starts. Jamie though has him in full PPR. Eli Mitchell at 18 and Heath at 11. He is facing the Rams this week. So Jamie, a little bit of caution. You've got Devin Singletary, Dearness Johnson, Leonard Fournette, Josh Jacobs ahead of him. And for Heath, I don't know if you have any of those guys.
Right. That's what I went looking, because this was another one where I saw it and I thought, man, 11 seems a little bit too high. Although I do love the fact that they threw the ball to him 5 times last week, and he is like, there's not any sharing going on in the Kyle Shanahan offense right now. It's Mitchell and Mitchell and Mitchell. It's just that the guys that I had behind him, like a couple of names, Alvin Kamara and James Robinson, if they just stink in practice, I'd go ahead and move them up ahead of him. Devin Singletary, it feels a little bit gross to put Devin Singletary ahead of a guy that's getting the workload that Mitchell is.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Singletary is going to get that workload this week. So, if Moss is out, I would anticipate the workload, snap share, whatever you want to say, probably somewhat similar. I'm just concerned that did Jeff Wilson have you're fine, go out there and play, or is he going to be relegated to not touching the ball again? Where was JaMychal Hasty? I know he got a little bit banged up in that game. Is he going to play this week? I don't love the matchup against the Rams. And so I think Mitchell's fine. I mean, yeah, he's going to get all the work, but you kind of saw what he got with all the work last week. It wasn't fantastic.
All right, then why don't we go to DJ Moore? It'll be our last one. DJ Moore at Arizona. Let me just check the updated rankings, but it looks like Jamie's got DJ Moore 29th, up to 27, and Heath has him 19th. So, Jamie, first word. We did this last week with DJ Moore. We probably were too high on him. He was horrible against the Patriots, but what do you think about him this week against Arizona? You have him as a number 3.
Yeah, I hope he's where he has him ranked. We just don't know what PJ Walker is going to do for DJ Moore at this point. Walker could come in and be better than what Darnold's been lately. That's the hope. I would imagine most people that have DJ Moore are, struggling with some decisions. Like I'm starting Hunter Renfrow over him. I'm starting Cole Beasley over him. This PPR. I'm starting Jalen Waddle over him. I'm trying to think who else in that same range. I start Jerry Jeudy over him at this point in PPR. So Moore may benefit with the quarterback change, but it's a bad offensive line. It's a potentially bad quarterback situation, and he just has not been productive lately. So I don't care what the season tells me. It's what my eyes tell me lately, and the offense for the Panthers seems broken.
Heath?
Yeah, again, I think this one's pretty easy to see the difference. It's exactly what Jamie said. It's what's happened lately versus what's happened over the season and over DJ Moore's career. And I've not seen enough lately, especially with a quarterback change happening. I don't think PJ Walker's going to be good, but I do think he can be better than what Sam Darnold's been the last 3 weeks, because Sam Darnold the last 3 weeks has been one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history.
DJ Moore has the potential to be the most frustrating player like he was last year, right? It's just so inconsistent. And last year was a little different because he was not getting a lot of catches, so he didn't have a good floor in PPR. But I hope he's not Brandon Cooks with Davis Mills, where, what was it? I think it was ended up being 6 games, 3
were good, 3 were bad,
3 terrible ones.
Yep.
And very good chance that you started him the wrong week, sat him the wrong weeks. I just hope it doesn't end up being that way with DJ Moore.
You remember what I used to say about Stephon Diggs in Minnesota?
That he was better than his situation or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Oh yeah, more. Oh yeah. More.
Get out of Carolina if this is the mess it's going to be for the next couple of years. Don't sign extension. Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm going to test the market. Go someplace else.
I don't know about you guys. I have a new obsession. I started watching Squid Game. It's not that. I'm not sure how I feel about Squid Game. But I am obsessed with Liquid IV. This stuff is awesome. All right, you need to get hydrated. All right, you got the cooler weather coming in, makes it easier to miss signs of dehydration like overheating and perspiration. So it's even more important right now to keep your body properly hydrated. And now it's flu season, so all this stuff is really important. Okay, get yourself some Liquid IV. This stuff is delicious and you're just drinking water. It's a good thing to be drinking water. So you take a glass of water, you put some liquid IV in there. They got all these different flavors. So if you're doing it, before a workout, or when do you drink your liquid IV, Heath?
Friday mornings, Tuesday mornings, Monday mornings, Saturday mornings, generally first thing in the morning, especially after those late night games.
Probably for me, it'll be right after the podcast. That's what it is most days. And I'm on a strawberry kick right now. But we got a lot
strawberry's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. Even my son, it makes me give some of it to him. So, you can, first of all, they're available at Walmart. All right. So you can get your favorite flavors nationwide at Walmart, or get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code FFT at checkout. That is liquidiv.com, and use the code FFT at checkout. So what is it basically? Contains 5 essential vitamins. It's got more vitamin C than an orange, as much potassium as a banana. It's healthier than the sugary sports drinks. There are no artificial flavors or preservatives. There's less sugar than you get in an apple. So I think it's great. I think you're going to really love it. And there are enough flavors where you'll be able to pick the one that you really like. Again, with Liquid IV, grab your favorite Liquid IV flavors nationwide at Walmart, or get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code FFT at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you get better hydration today using the promo code FFT at liquidiv.com. And we are on to the games. We're going to start with Sunday night, Kansas City at Las Vegas. Stat of the game, I know we're going to be talking a lot about the quarterbacks, but how about the running backs in this game? And a running back has gained 89 or more total yards every game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's great. And Josh Jacobs, I don't know how many times he's done that this year, but you think he'll get 90 total yards, Heath, for Josh Jacobs?
I mean, the history says he will. I feel pretty comfortable starting Josh Jacobs as a number 2 running back. My favorite Make Adam stat about Josh Jacobs is that he is averaging the same number of fantasy points per game this season as Dalvin Cook.
You can't. Obviously, Dalvin Cook has been a big disappointment, but he also has had some bad touchdown luck. Yeah. All right, Josh Jacobs. I don't see how you sit him this week. Right. Singletary or Jacobs?
Jacobs.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. He had 95 total yards last week.
Boom.
That was a season high. His previous season high was 82 total yards. Great. Okay. How about Darrell Williams? Another team that stinks against the run. Is Darrell Williams a start this week, Jamie?
Well, first we got to find out what's happening with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was designated to return off of IR. So if he plays this week, then clearly no. If he's out again, you're talking about 3 or 4 games without Edwards-Helaire. He's gotten at least 19 total touches. So he's getting the work. 2 of those games, he's been above 16 PPR points. So he's been successful in half of the amount of games that he's played as the starter. So, yeah, I would take my chances with him. I like Jacobs more. I would start, Singletary and Dearness Johnson over Darrell Williams. But I'm not getting away from Darrell Williams if Edwards-Helaire is out as a number 2 running back.
If you knew Edwards-Helaire were out, would you start Waddle or Darrell Williams?
Williams in half and non-PPR, Waddle in PPR.
Yeah, but if you have to make that choice tonight,
Waddle.
Probably Waddle, right?
Yep.
Okay. And all right, let's talk about the Chiefs. What are we expecting, Jamie? You started out. What are we expecting from the passing game here?
I mean, I'm expecting Mahomes to be Mahomes at some point, not the recent Mahomes, but the usual Mahomes, but maybe not to the same extent or heights of what Mahomes typically is. So, if you go back to last year in the 2 meetings against the Raiders, he had a 24-point game and a 32 or 33-point game. So I'd probably put him closer to the 24 at this point, but that would be a welcome number based on what we've seen the last 3 weeks. The nice thing is obviously he's still throwing 35 or more pass attempts each of the last 3 games. So if you tell me Mahomes is going to throw it 35 plus times on any week, I'm still starting him. Like I got a question on a radio show today. Clearly I like Carson Wentz. He's the start of the week. And the question was, would you start Wentz over Mahomes? No, I'm not there yet. But I think if you're just looking at it DFS wise, he's probably not the best play. Unless you just want to be contrarian and hope this is the breakout week. If you by any chance, drafted him with, a Brady or Herbert, whatever those Stafford, I'd start Stafford over him. But for the most part, Mahomes is still going to be the starter in my fantasy team, and I'm not going to get cute with it.
Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire the secret to Patrick Mahomes?
No, that's what I think he might be the secret to their season, because
Patrick
Darren Williams
Mahomes
not good.
Averaged 32.5 fantasy points per game in the 5 games that Clyde Edwards-Helaire played.
Yeah, and you could make the argument that they just don't respect the run game right now, and it's been so easy to play 2 deep safeties and take all the big plays away because they're just daring Darrell Williams and his 3.5 whatever it is yards per carry. I don't even know if he's averaging that. You could make the argument that Edwards-Helaire works.
8 fantasy points per game without Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Half.
Wow. Well, what do you expect? I mean, and look, we know it comes down to one thing basically. The big play has been absent. Tyreek Hill has gone 5 straight games without a 20-yard catch. That is unbelievable. And the Raiders are actually really good at this. They give up the 3rd fewest pass plays of 20+ yards. They've given up just it might be the 5th fewest pass plays of 20+ yards. 4th fewest, right in the middle, and only 3 pass plays of 30+ yards. So this isn't on paper the matchup to get them back on track, but they have had pretty easy competition. I'll say that about the Raiders. So Heath, what about you? Are you more optimistic or less optimistic than Jamie?
I think we have him ranked almost exactly the same spot. I'm not sitting Patrick Mahomes for anybody who you might reasonably have on your team with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to start him. I'm going to start Tyreek. I'm going to start Kelsey, and I'm going to hope.
What about the 15 passes we'll get from Jalen Hurts? Will those be better than the 38 from Mahomes?
And I don't know if we're going to talk about that game or not, but I'm pretty much out on Jalen Hurts this week. So I would definitely start Mahomes over Hurts. I would start almost every quarterback we've talked about so far today over Jalen Hurts.
Okay. All right. We talked about Darrell Williams. You're going to start Tyreek Hill. Mecole Hardman?
No.
Boom bust flex, and he hasn't boomed very much.
I'd rather start James Washington, and if there is no Chris Godwin, I'm starting Tyler Johnson.
Over Hardman. Okay. There is we have 2 bad teams against tight ends. So, and we have the 2 best tight ends in fantasy. At least that's what we thought going in. So let's start Kelsey and Waller. Derek Carr. Very interesting. So I'll let you guys kick it off. Heath, starter sit Derek Carr.
Borderline number 1. I think I've got him 12th or 13th. I don't think it's a bad spot for him. I also don't love him. It's just, do you have someone better?
Jamie, you are a little bit lower. I think Heath has him 11th. You have him 14th. Dave has him the lowest, 17th for Derek Carr. And what are your thoughts here on him?
Yeah, the one that I probably struggle with is just him versus Kyler if Kyler plays. But I think Carr is a low-end starter. I don't want to judge him based on last week. First game without Henry Ruggs, following the whole situation, long road trip. Now they're back home, key division game. They could be the best team in the division. That wouldn't be a surprise based on how the Chiefs are struggling and the inconsistencies from the Chargers. So it's a huge game for them. The fact that he's at home, he did well against the Chiefs last year. I don't think the Chiefs defense is as good as what we saw last week, clearly, because it was Jordan Love. So I know that they figured some things out, putting Chris Jones back inside, getting some guys healthy. I still think Carr has some success. I think Deshaun Jackson's going to help, just with a guy that threatens the defense. I think they missed that last week. So Carr is fine. I have no problem starting him if he's been my guy the whole season.
Josh is asking in our chat, is Carson Wentz a better option than Derek Carr? I have both of them in a 2QB league. I'll be starting Wentz. How about you guys?
Yep.
I'll be starting Wentz also, but not a bad quarterback duo rest away.
I hope so. It's just I'm a little worried about Derek Carr. I went back, I looked at his good games, 25 to 27 points against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Miami, Denver. A lot of big pass plays in there. And obviously that's the Ruggs element.
But now they have Deshaun Jackson.
I don't think he's Henry Ruggs. I mean,
well, he's going to scare defenses. That's a big part of it. And they'll take some shots.
I hope so.
He's not Henry Ruggs. But
all right, how do you guys feel about Renfro?
Love him.
Yeah, I like him a lot as a number 2 wide receiver.
Okay. See, the Chiefs, I don't think Renfro really applies. He's so different, but the Chiefs have been pretty damn good against wide receivers lately. Stephon Diggs, 69 yards. McLaurin, 28. Julio Jones, 38. Giants receivers were crap. Devontae Adams, 42 yards on 14 targets. You saw Emmanuel Sanders and A.J. Brown have huge games, but Chiefs are starting to do better against wide receivers. But Renfro, slot receivers like that, a bunch of catches, it's just different. And start Darren Waller and sit the DSTs.
Yes. Well,
All right.
they're playing that crappy offense. So
I know, right? Detroit at
now, if Everett Delaire plays, though, that's the key to everything.
I agree. Well, I made the case just to veer a little bit that Clyde's a pretty good buy low because they're running the ball so much.
He's a great buy low.
You think so? Because the argument against it is that is he going to get the high value touches? Is he going to get catches? Is he going to get the goal line work?
But it's all a matter of context about what you're giving up for him. But if you can get him for probably next to nothing comparatively to where he was. Yeah. All right. Detroit. Like for example, if I'm not starting a Mike Williams and I don't have any faith in Mike Williams, I'm not saying that's me personally, but if you're that's type of player you're carrying, like why not take a chance if your running back situation's crappy? Okay. All right, then now let's go on to Detroit and Pittsburgh. Stat of the game. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do the 3 bad games for DeAndre Swift have in common? That'd be 11 or fewer PPR fantasy points.
I'm not looking at the notes because I'm just hoping that you are continuing your same energy from yesterday. And I'm going to assume that all of the teams that he was bad against started with a P or an S.
Packers.
Oh, yeah, he said you did a terrible job with Jeopardy.
I can't disagree. Packers, Philadelphia starts with a P, and Chicago sounds like it starts with an S. So, no. Basically, I was like, there's really nothing here. Time of possession, score, all that. It's touchdowns. He's had 3 bad games, and those are the only 3 games in which he has not scored a touchdown. And so, Heath, I'm actually curious your thoughts on the fact that the Steelers got a pretty kind of inconsistent run defense. Not bad, but sometimes it's But they've only given up 2 touchdowns to running backs this year. So what does that mean for DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, I don't currently, and I kind of came out of their last game thinking this, and I just don't know right now. I'm not sure the Steelers defense is one of the 7 or 8 that really matter right now. They've been pretty average in most regards. So the fact that they've only given up 2 touchdowns to running backs is not really going to move me very much on DeAndre Swift. I'm nervous about DeAndre Swift every week because things can go wrong for this team. But I kind of think that the Lions offensive line is going to be a little bit better. They're probably going to be a little better at running the ball, and they're coming off a bye, and Pittsburgh's on a short week. So I think you have to start Swift.
I get the sense that fantasy managers are a little frustrated, a little nervous with DeAndre Swift. How do you guys feel about him just in general? These last, what do we have? 8 weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 weeks left. What do you think about him going forward, Jamie?
I think you kind of know what you're getting. In PPR and half PPR, he's a must-start guy. In non-PPR, it just depends on who you're comparing him to. So in non-PPR this week, I would rather start Dearness Johnson and Devin Singletary because of the lack of touchdown potential.
Is DeAndre Swift a must-start in PPR, or is he a superstar in PPR?
He is not a superstar. He is a must-start guy. I mean, he has superstar potential. When things go right for him, he's a superstar. But, like you said, we've seen games where he's been at 4 catches or less. That's not what I'm buying if I'm buying DeAndre Swift. We've seen games where – because the rushing production is always going to be the tricky part with him.
Yeah.
The touchdown potential is the concerning thing. And just going back to the Steelers for a second, do you know there are 2 guys tied with the same number? Do you know who the 2 leading pass catchers out of the backfield against the Steelers are this season?
It's in my notes, but I won't cheat.
They played Buffalo, Las Vegas, Cincinnati, Green Bay, Denver, Seattle, Cleveland, and Chicago.
I'm going to say Javonte Williams and Kareem Hunt.
I was going to say Khalil Herbert. No, I don't know. Who is it?
Khalil Herbert had no catches, so you failed. The 2 leading pass catchers against the Pittsburgh Steelers are Kenyon Drake in week 2. He had 5 catches for 46 yards. And DJ Dallas in week 6 when he had 5 catches for 33 yards.
Yeah, they have been pretty good against pass-catching running backs, haven't they?
It's a little scary for DeAndre Swift this week.
But in PPR, are you still starting him ahead of replacement running backs?
Yeah, I still have him as a number 1 guy in PPR. He's at the tail end of it, but it really, it's like he said, you're scared every week, and it's more of a hope that he's going to be the guy. It obviously makes things a lot better if there is no Jamal Williams.
How about TJ Hawkinson? Any one that you may have picked up that would you start Schultz over him? Would you start Freiermuth?
I think you can make a case for Freiermuth in non-PPR. In PPR, I would still stick with Hawkinson. I would not start Dalton Schultz this week with Michael Gallup likely back over Hawkinson. The interesting one that I struggle with this week is Fant, because the Eagles are so bad against tight ends. And if there is no Patrick and there is no Alberto, then I would consider Fant potentially over Hawkinson. But for the most part, though, no, still starting Hawkinson.
All right, Heath. We've got the Detroit wide receivers. We've got everyone other than Najee and Deontay Johnson. Well, no, we'll get to the Steelers. Just real quick, Detroit wide receivers. Any interest? No. Okay. Ben Roethlisberger.
I will say this, though. Deeper leagues, take a flyer on Josh Reynolds. He was with Jared Goff, and they just picked him up.
That's a good point, yeah. Any interest in Ben Roethlisberger?
I really don't.
This is by far his easiest matchup. I didn't realize he's actually had a pretty hard schedule. But, yeah, he's averaging like 1 touchdown a game, basically. Also, pass attempts for Roethlisberger in wins, 32.3. Pass attempts in losses, 46. Start Najee Harris. They're going to win. Start Najee Harris and start Deontay Johnson coming off a disappointing game. James Washington's a flyer. Pat Freiermuth is a fryer. Like fryer and flyer. I was making a joke. All 3 of Ben Roethlisberger's touchdown passes in his last 2 games have gone to Pat Freiermuth.
That is cool, and a bit of a cautionary tale.
Yes,
for Freiermuth, because he's probably not going to catch all of Ben's touchdowns for the rest of the season.
Probably not. But there won't be that many. All right, so Freiermuth is a start. So
one thing I go back to with Roethlisberger this week, remember when we got excited about in the preseason? It was like, oh, wow, look, he looks good. It was against?
Detroit.
Yeah.
Backups, though. I think it was pretty sure it was like almost all backups.
Their starters are.
See it. You could see it. So Freiermuth or George Kittle?
Kittle.
I have gone back and forth on that one, but I'm going to go with Kittle.
Freiermuth or Gesicki tonight?
Gesicki.
Freiermuth in non-PPR, Gesicki in PPR.
Freiermuth or Dallas Goedert?
Freiermuth.
Man.
Goddard's
been a little bit of a rich man's Tyler Higbee, but I'm just going to I'll go with Freiermuth.
Okay. We are going to take a quick break. By the way, Pittsburgh's DST is top 3 for everyone. I did not find the DST that Heath is too low, but actually perfectly right about. I'll try to find one before the show ends, but so far I got nothing. Quick break here on Fantasy Football today. When we come back, Bills at Jets. I'm telling you, it's a sneaky, interesting game for fantasy purposes. We'll be right back. Buffalo is at the Jets. And I'm telling you, man, if they get one more bad game, with all the panic about Patrick Mahomes and all that, it's going to be there for Josh Allen because his offenses look like crap 2 weeks in a row, and they're getting the Kansas City treatment. They also have had some big offensive line problems. They have no Jonathan Feliciano, starting guard. He's on IR. And their right tackle, Spencer Brown, he left early against Jacksonville. They moved one of their guards to tackle, so then they were playing with backups at 3 different spots. Brown practiced on a limited basis on Wednesday. If they get him back, that could really help. But we expect, Buffalo at the Jets, it should be start them all, sit them all, basically. Jamie, is that more or less how you're looking at this game?
No, there are still Jets guys you want to look at, mostly Michael Carter, just with the hope of Mike White. The dump-off passes were there for him in the 2 starts the start and a half that White made before getting hurt against the Colts. Josh Johnson was not the same guy for Carter. So I feel very comfortable with him. That's really the only one, though. I think just with the Jets receivers, knowing that the secondary is still really good, pass rush is going to be a problem for him. Corey Davis coming back in the mix is going to make things more complicated for Elijah Moore. So, as we said on Tuesday, stash Elijah Moore. The matchups that are coming are very nice against the against the Dolphins and the Texans. Stash Corey Davis, too, just to see what happens there. But I think just for this particular week, it's Michael Carter or nothing.
Go on.
Yeah, It's amazing. Like Mike White has been Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers level of dump off. He's thrown 88 passes this season, and I think 33 of them have gone to Michael Carter or Ty Johnson. It's like a 40% target share for the two running backs. So I like Carter more than I would normally like a running back on a terrible team against the Bills. I think that the tricky part of this game, because if Zach Moss doesn't play, we're all going to start Devin Singletary as a number 2 running back, and everybody's starting Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. The tricky part is Beasley and Sanders and where they fall in that number 3/number 2 range this week. And some of that's probably determined by Dawson Knox. I think for Sanders, it's more like, do I have anybody that I want to start at wide receiver? If not, I'll take the upside of Sanders and hope this is one of the weeks that he hits. Beasley has a high-end number 3.
Is Dawson Knox the key to the Emmanuel Sanders?
You can do the Clyde Edwards-Helaire type stats with Emmanuel Sanders for Dawson Knox as well. I think Emmanuel Sanders is like a top 15 wide receiver when Dawson Knox plays, and outside of the top 40 when Dawson Knox doesn't play. That doesn't make any sense. But
it's not even like Knox was so heavily targeted. Tommy Sweeney probably got close to as many targets as Knox usually does.
It's just that Knox scored touchdowns, which made Sanders really good.
That's true. Knox scores touchdown, but Josh Allen has thrown 42 or more passes in 3 straight games. And I said it last week, when Josh Allen throws a lot of passes, Cole Beasley has a good game. When he doesn't throw a lot of passes, Cole Beasley has a terrible game. And if defenses really are adjusting to the Bills to take everything deep away, that's going to be more Beasley than Sanders. It's going to benefit Beasley more than Sanders. Could really hurt Emmanuel Sanders. So who do you guys like better then, Beasley or Sanders?
Oh, Beasley by a lot. I mean, it's so hard to get away from the targets and what they've been and the catches and what they've been. He had an 11-catch game against the Jets in their last meeting last year. This Jets secondary, I know the numbers are one thing, but they're not good.
No, they're not.
I think the nice thing for Beasley because I do think that the volume of Josh Allen matters more for Beasley than anyone else, because he's not going to have a 50-yard touchdown play probably.
Right.
The nice thing is, if there's no Zach Moss, even if it's a game script where you might think they'd run more, I don't think they're going to have 25 running back rush attempts with Devin Singletary and Matt Breida or whoever the backup running back's going to be this week.
No, in the last 4 games without Zach Moss for Devin Singletary, 3 last year and 1 this year. Bottom line is, he has scored 12 or more non-PPR, 16 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 of those 4 games. It's not a ton of carries, though. It's 13, 18, 11, and 13 carries, 4, 5, 1, and 2 touches, but 77 or more total yards in 3 games. And again, 16 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 of 4 games. And the Jets give up the most points to running backs. A running back has scored a touchdown in 7 straight games against the New York Jets. It's just hard to get away from Devin Singletary if Zach Moss is out. Let me ask some quick follow-up questions here. If Zach Moss plays, would you start either Bills running back in this game?
Yes.
Moss
over Singletary, but yes.
I would they'd be in that low end number 2, high end flex range. I'm trying to think of guys who aren't playing on Thursday night who I would compare to them.
Javonte Williams.
I'd start Javonte Williams over both.
And Melvin Gordon?
I'd start Melvin Gordon over Javonte Williams. So
right.
Yes, I'd start JD McKissick and PPR over both.
I would go Gordon, Moss, Williams, Singletary. But I would start both those guys over Jordan Howard. Both Bills guys over Jordan Howard.
I agree with that.
If Knox plays, where are you ranking him?
He will be at the back end of the number 1 guy. So I would start him ahead of Dan Arnold and Logan Thomas, for example.
I would you brought up Logan Thomas. I don't have Logan Thomas ranked because I missed the memo on ranking Logan Thomas this week, but we don't really think Logan Thomas is going to play this week, do we? He had 1 practice and he was sore.
He practiced don't do anything physical for 2 months and then go out there and do a football practice. You're probably going to be sore. We'll see. I mean, obviously, that's the way we approached it as we were ranking him. So if he plays, then he's a borderline starter.
I would put Knox 12 ahead of Tyler Conklin and Zach Ertz, but behind Dan Arnold.
Okay. And then finally, does this mean anything to you? This is big. Mike White threw 11 passes in week 4. In week 9, terrible week 9. And 1 of them went to a running back. Is that a sign that teams adjusted to what happened in the previous 2 games? Because if Michael Carter does not get that passing downs role, he's probably going to be awful against the Buffalo Bills, just based on what other running backs have done. So does that matter to you, Heath? Only 1 pass in 10 attempts to 11 attempts to a running back.
Those 11 attempts were included in the 88 attempts that I talked about, where he threw 40% of his passes to running backs. So
I know that, but I'm just saying, like,
I don't think those 11 attempts are more important than the other 77.
Did the defenses adjust? That's the question.
I mean, well, we said this going into the game. The Colts do a very good job at taking away pass catching running backs, and their pass rush is not the same as the Bills' pass rush. So guys on him quicker, ball out faster. That's his go-to guy, I think, still. So I would trust Michael Carter in PPR. I don't love him in non-PPR, though.
All right, but the Bills have been really good at that, too. They give the 4th fewest receiving yards to running backs. Only one running back.
It's not pretty. It's not going to be pretty for Michael. You're hoping for like a 5 for 30 and, probably 45, 50 yards rushing. He's going to be a low-end starter at best.
Well, I personally am starting him over Chase Edmonds in one league. Those are my only 2 options. Okay, Buffalo DST is number 1 for Jamie and Heath. Jacksonville is at Indianapolis. Stat of the game: the Colts have allowed 13 or more PPR fantasy points to a wide receiver in every game, 17 or more PPR fantasy points to a wide receiver in 8 of 9 games. Does that give you any hope for any Jacksonville wide receiver, Jamie Eisenberg?
Absolutely. I think Marvin Jones and Jamal Agnew are definitely in play here, but as number 3 receivers, not a must-start guy by any stretch. Jones has 1 good game in his last 5. Agnew's kind of taken over as the Agnew and Dan Arnold have taken over as the go-to options for Trevor Lawrence. But this matchup is great. And so, I think we can see Jones with a player or 2 down the field. I think we see Agnew continue to rack up targets and be successful. But again, nothing more than number 3 receivers.
How do you feel about Trevor Lawrence, Heath, compared to, it's going to be people who are a little desperate. Mike White, you got Lawrence, Mike White, Roethlisberger, let's say Bridgewater. Where's Lawrence?
I would start Trevor Lawrence over Mike White against the Buffalo Bills. That expresses my level of confidence in Trevor Lawrence. I would also start him over PJ Walker and Jared Goff and Trevor Siemian. Those are the only quarterbacks who are playing this week that I would start Trevor Lawrence over.
How confident are you in James Robinson if he comes back this week?
I would really feel a lot better about James. Like I don't know about this heel. If he plays the entire game, I feel very confident he'll be a top 12 running back. I have a little bit of concern that he is one bad step away from not playing anymore, especially if the score gets out of hand.
Okay. Jamie and Dave have him in the top 12. You have him about 15th.
Yeah, so, not much difference.
Yeah, and we'll just see if he starts practicing. That would be nice. Now, Jamie, if Robinson does not play, what about Carlos Hyde?
Good luck to you.
Well, look, he got 21 carries last week. He faced the Bills.
He's a flex.
Yeah, because you could say, all right, am I starting Carlos Hyde if Robinson's out, or someone in a committee like a Melvin Gordon?
I think I'd probably start Carlos Hyde over Howard.
I would start Carlos Hyde over Howard, yes. I would start Carlos Hyde over Alex Collins if there's no Chris Carson. I would start I'd probably go Carlos Hyde over Javonte Williams, but still Melvin Gordon over Carlos Hyde. I would probably start Carlos Hyde over Devin Singletary if Zach Moss plays. So he'd be in the 25 to 30 range.
Yeah. Okay. And we talked about the Jacksonville wide receivers. Maybe it's Agnew. Let's hope for something there. Dan Arnold is top 12 in PPR, about 12th. 60 or more receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. And the Colts give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. Just going to be tough for Dan Arnold to score because Trevor Lawrence basically does not throw touchdowns. Just not really interested in doing that. Carson Wentz is top 10. He's Jamie's start of the week, and we discussed him at the very beginning of the show. Start Jonathan Taylor. Jamie, Nyheim Hines, any interest there?
Not really. I mean, you're going to get the game that we saw last week pop up every now and then. Maybe he does it 2 weeks in a row, but just too risky and volatile to trust.
Michael Pittman over his last 5 games is the number 3 wide receiver in non-PPR. I don't know what he is in full PPR because the website was not working properly, but it's probably 6, 7, something like that. But But, he's number 3 in non-PPR, but among wide receivers, he's 17th in targets, 9th in catches, 7th in yards, 2nd in touchdowns. There's not really much here. I mean, you're starting Michael Pittman. Jaguars are bad. What about Hilton, Heath? Any interest there?
I don't really want to, but he would be a boom bust flex if he's active. I think I would rather start Emmanuel Sanders than him. But I'll probably have T.Y. Hilton ahead of Marvin Jones.
How about T.Y. Hilton or Michael Carter?
Carter.
I would start Hilton over non-Judy Broncos receivers.
How about, well, it's going to be tough. Let's say Stevenson and Harris are out. Would you start Brandon Bolden, J.J. Taylor, or T.Y. Hilton?
Bolden.
You laugh, Heath.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the idea.
I know. When I went to set my Fantasy Football Today League lineup yesterday, I saw that I was an underdog by 100 points. I have Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and I changed my lineup and I became an underdog by about 82 points. Right now, my starting running backs are Brandon Bolden and Darrell Williams. And I have I might have to start J.J. Taylor and Brandon. It's like I have the worst team ever. So many injuries and buys.
Well, I think we should give this is a good opportunity to give some credit to somebody else. Mayron Berkson has the best team ever.
So he's probably going to beat me this week. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, his 3 running backs this week are Jonathan Taylor, James Conner, and DeAndre Swift.
Is that better than Brandon Bolden, Darrell Williams, and Ty Johnson?
You're an 80-point underdog, and you still have 2 players on a bye in your starting lineup.
Yeah, that'll change. Well, I mean, look, I had to pick up Tyler Johnson to start over Brandon Cooks, and I'll throw injured Tim Patrick in there. We'll rerun the projections. Okay. Anyway, enough about my crappy.
Which league is this?
FFT.
I'm changing the schedule, so I play this week.
Oh God. I mean, like you go running back at 3 running backs with my first 4 picks in a PPR league. I really think if I had gotten good health, I think I would have a good team. But take some risks, didn't work. Where are we now? By the way, I'm 4-5, still alive. That's it. We're done. Stick the Colts tight ends and start the Colts DST. Minnesota's at the Chargers. Stat of the game. The Hollywood sign in Los Angeles used to be a billboard for a real estate development, and it said Hollywoodland. That was the original Hollywood sign. According to the article I read, it was in terrible condition, and Hugh Hefner was responsible, not solely responsible, for restoring it. Thanks, Hef. Anything in this game? Kirk Cousins, we already talked about. Heath likes him. Jamie's hesitant. Start the starting running back for the Vikings. I know you guys have Justin Jefferson in your top 12. Is it a confident top 12 ranking?
Yes.
Okay. What's going on? Everybody okay over there?
No, my kids are a nightmare right now.
As long as everyone's safe. It's a confident top 12. You said.
Yes.
All right. I'm a little worried about what we're seeing here. Just overall from the offense, and matchup's brutal. I don't know if they get Samuel back. The matchup was brutal before the 2 cornerbacks got hurt, and Devontae Smith took advantage last week, but he's the only wide receiver with more than 81 yards, and they faced some really good ones. So, all right, fine. Start him. What about Thielen, Heath?
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I will high-end number 2 wide receiver. There's some risk, but I think Cousins is going to be good. That generally means both Jefferson and Thielen are.
I need to take a break because Jamie's kids screaming in the background reminded me that today is Veterans Day, and I did not mention it at all, and I should have. So thank you to all the veterans out there and to all of our active service members and everything that all of you have done for the country. We very much appreciate it, and enjoy the day. You deserve it. Happy Veterans Day.
Absolutely.
Tyler Conklin or Dan Arnold?
Arnold.
Tyler Conklin or Dawson Knox if he plays?
Knox.
Tyler Conklin or the starting tight end for the Washington football team?
Conklin.
Thomas over Conklin over Ricky Seals-Jones.
And he's right there. He's basically back-to-back with Ertz and Hunter Henry. For Heath, he's ahead of them, so he's in that range. All right, Justin Herbert is a must start. He's top 6. Eckler must start. Keenan Allen must start. Mike Williams, Heath, start or sit?
He's a boom bust number 3 wide receiver, but I think in most situations, if you start 3 wide receivers, you need to start Mike Williams.
Man, Dave better hope he comes through.
Oh, I can't believe he made that trade. We talked about it yesterday. Heath said Tyler Lockett. What was it?
Lockett and Schultz.
Lockett and Dalton Schultz for Mike Williams.
What was Dave's reasoning for making the trade?
Well, first of all, Dave is, I think, always season long the low guy on Lockett. I just feel like
I don't know how he ended up with Tyler Lockett on his team.
Yeah, exactly. He's never really liked Lockett. And he was calling Mike Williams a buy low. He thinks the matchups are a lot better, and they are. So he has faith in him, and I guess he doesn't really value Dalton Schultz that much. So
Dalton Schultz was his second tight end. I think he has one of the big 3 or 4 as a starter. So it was a luxury.
You guys starting Cole Beasley and or Emmanuel Sanders over Mike Williams this week?
Beasley and PPR, Williams over both and none.
Yeah.
And you can get away from Jared Cook. He is outside the top 15. We start Conklin over him.
Yep.
Yes.
And they've been, Minnesota's actually been decent against tight ends, and Jared Cook just could be
done. A lot of touchdowns to tight end this season.
Oh, wow. How about that? Okay. Chargers DST. Heath has him 11th. Jamie 16th. Dave 9th. Cleveland at New England. I think we have 1 or 2 games left. We have Cleveland, New England, and is that it? And New Orleans, Tennessee. Cleveland at New England. Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones if you're desperate?
Baker.
I think I have Mac Jones higher.
I wonder if Myles Garrett takes the message from Brian Burns and kills Mac Jones this week.
I hope not.
I really think he's wrong. I kind
really disruptive to the week.
I believe Mac Jones. I do. I didn't at first, but I believe him.
It's one thing to believe him. It's another thing to be the person impacted by it. And Brian Burns' account of it, if you heard what he had to say, he said basically he twisted his ankle and then walked off as he's lying there on the ground. Like, didn't show any sort of remorse and hasn't offered any sort of public apology for it. And so if you're Brian Burns, it's like, okay, if that's how you feel and you say it was incidental, maybe say, hey, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I could see that. But he's calling in the hit squad on him. I don't know. Okay. So, by the way, Cleveland.
You said hit squad. You just said happy hunting defensive ends.
Yeah, the hunting squad. Sorry. Only Green Bay takes more time in between snaps than the Cleveland Browns. They are not a good matchup because they are so slow, and they have a great run defense. So, having said that, what the hell to do, Heath, with the New England running backs?
I mean, ideally, you don't find yourself in a situation. What's that?
You should have stopped at
Ideally, you don't find yourself in a situation where you need to care. If you have Damian Harris and he's able to get active, then you play him. If you have Ramondre Stevenson and he's able to get active and Harris is not, then you play him. If both guys are out, it's just a desperation flex type of situation. I would prefer Bolden over JJ Taylor, but like less than 0% confidence in that call. And so I don't want to start either one of them.
It is worth noting that there was a game earlier this year where Stevenson, I think, was inactive and Harris got hurt, and JJ Taylor got more carries than Brandon Bolden. They went to Taylor.
Was Dan White still active then, or no? He was already out.
No, it was only 3 weeks ago, I think. And JJ Taylor is listed at 5'6", I believe. So it's hard to imagine him getting a huge workload. I mean, I'm not even. I'm taller than
I think the hope would be is Bolden, like Keith said earlier. Bolden in the passing game is the one that you would look at and say, okay, if they're trailing, which they could be, if they're in a tight game and they can't run the ball, which they could be, then Bolden is going to probably get the most playing time. Pass protection is certainly going to favor Brandon Bolden. So I think Bolden, like when we were talking about Carlos Hyde before, that's kind of the range where I have Bolden in PPR. I think he's a decent flex if everybody's out. But I will say that, I went through a lot of waivers last night for the leagues that run waivers on Wednesday. and Stevenson was still there, I'd still be picking him up even if he doesn't play this week. There's certainly an opportunity for him to be a factor in his backfield moving forward.
Yeah, I think Jamie got him in the 2 QB league with a $5 bid. Was that you?
Yeah, my last $5.
Wow. Okay. Oh, so then following
That's
up.
my all rookie running back team, by the way.
Oh, how you doing in the league?
5-3. No, I think 4-4-1.
We're 4-1.
Yeah.
Jeez, did you have a commissioner who gave you a tie because you had an illegal lineup or something?
No, only a jerk would do that.
Yeah.
He has a commissioner that didn't set decimal scoring.
That's
only a guy who's commissioning 15 leagues would do
that. I should go back and check if I would have won, and then I'll change the scoring.
So Dearness Johnson is about 15th or so. And if Damian Harris plays, would you start Harris over Johnson? If Ramondre Stevenson plays and Damian Harris doesn't, would you start the starting running back for the Patriots over Dearness Johnson?
No, I'd rather have Dearness Johnson.
I would rather have Dearness Johnson.
Are you starting any wide receivers?
They just paid a lot of money to their offensive line in Cleveland. They better come through with a big game this week.
I think I have Landry. Like Landry and Jacoby Myers for me are in the same range. I have Landry ahead of him, like 3 or 4 spots.
And what range is that? The sit range?
The number 3, low end number 3 range.
Okay. Yeah, I would prefer to sit every receiver in this game. Someone will make a play. I don't know who it's going to be. Could be Peoples-Jones again. This just feels like it's a field goal, run the ball, whatever team gets a win, you're happy about it.
Yeah, this is the Costanza, which is the opposite of the Bonanza. And Hunter Henry is something. He catches a lot of touchdowns. He has one game this year with more than 42 yards. What can you even say? You just need him to catch a touchdown. So would you start Logan Thomas or Hunter Henry? Or Ricky Seals-Jones or Hunter Henry?
I would start Logan Thomas.
Washington tight end over Hunter Henry.
Which DST do you prefer?
I prefer the Patriots because they're at home.
I have the Patriots ranked higher.
Too high.
But both are starting. And by the way, the Browns are the beat the waiver wire defense.
Browns, who do they play?
Detroit next week.
Oh, okay. Good, because I'm done picking on the Jets. As long as it's not the Jets. The Jets embarrass my DST every week. New Orleans at Tennessee. Trevor Siemian is a sit. To be fair, he's done pretty decently in the last 1.5 games. Not that you're starting him, but he hasn't been toxic for the Saints. And there's a couple of trends to keep an eye on here for the Saints for deeper leagues. Jamie mentioned it on the waiver wire show with Deontay Harris. He's got 15 targets in his last
15 targets the last 2 weeks, yeah.
And Adam Troutman also has like 13 targets or something in his last 2 games. So those guys have been a little bit more involved.
Deontay Harris came out very, very high, uncomfortably high in the projections this week.
Yeah.
I think I have him currently projected higher than any Jacksonville wide receiver.
I picked him up in one league and I dropped him for Washington, but he was somebody I was considering in just a league where I'm desperate for receivers.
Yeah. So how about
James
Tyler Johnson, James Washington, and Deontay Harris? Who's your favorite?
Currently, James Washington.
I would go Harris, but if I don't have Godwin projected out right now, if Godwin was out, I'd probably have Tyler Johnson the highest.
That's fair. I was thinking more long term.
Tennessee, they give up the most fantasy points to receivers. They are playing better defensively, though, than they did at the beginning of the year, and they've had a pretty tough schedule. So, all right, it's a deep league thing. Start Kamara, and if he doesn't play, Mark Ingram or Dearness Johnson.
Still Dearness Johnson.
Dearness Johnson, but if Kamara doesn't play, I'm finally going to cash in my Mark Ingram ticket in the tanking league. Been sitting there on the roster just waiting for a 3rd round pick.
All right. And not ranking Adam Troutman, just trying to keep an eye on. Ryan Tannehill, start or sit?
Sit.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Any running back for the Titans?
None that you could start with confidence.
No.
Best run defense in football here.
I would love to see more Deontay Foreman, though, just to see what it looks like.
I did pick up Foreman in a couple of deeper leagues. In the tanking league, I think Jamie beat me to him. That league, we have $1,000 fab. You got him in that league, right, Jamie?
I did.
For 15.
I
I think I had, or maybe you had him for 17 and I had bid 15. I was really, really frustrated that you beat me to Deontay Foreman.
I can trade him to you if you want.
I got Mark Ingram. You can put it into a package deal.
Just straight up.
So, do you guys have any hesitation with AJ Brown theoretically facing Lattimore?
Some, but none that I'm sitting. You know, if like you look at it, like Mike Evans didn't have a terrible game. He scored, right?
Yeah, he had 2 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets.
DJ Moore scored against him, right? Week 1. I don't know if he was covering him, but I'm just thinking number 1 receivers.
79 yards and a touchdown. Yep.
Yeah, there was another number 1 receiver in there too that did okay.
And I'm just really curious.
Galladay.
I think we've found my defense I'm too low on. They just checked the notes, but I'm really curious if Lattimore is going to follow AJ Brown everywhere with Julio Jones on the field. I know Julio hasn't been himself, but the track record of Julio playing against the Saints and all the times Lattimore's faced Julio, players often are a lot slower to let go of the guys. Like we've seen the reaction to Odell Beckham, of the guy still being the guy. I really don't know for sure that they'll follow AJ Brown.
I hope they don't, because Devontae Adams had 56 yards. McLaurin had 46 yards. Evans had 48. He scored. So yeah, those were the 3 kind of big ones who really struggled. Metcalf would have had a terrible game if he didn't get away with a pass interference. That was with Geno Smith though.
And
yeah,
Stephen Gardner-Johnson got hurt in the game last week.
Yes.
So
did. And they gave up a ton of fantasy. They gave up like the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They're
like top 5 in receptions to receive. I don't mind Julio this week. I think he's kind of a sneaky play.
Yeah, and they've given up a lot of big plays lately too. They've given up now 8 pass plays of 40 or more yards, and almost all of them have been pretty recent. So Saints are struggling with their pass defense. Julio Jones or Jerry Jeudy?
Jeudy, but I would start Julio over Sutton and Patrick with confidence this week.
Julio Jones or Jalen Waddle?
Waddle.
You're too eager. Drop it down a little.
Ayuk or Julio?
Still Ayuk, but Julio's not far behind.
Hey, by the way, don't give me that on Waddle, okay? Like Jacoby Brissett is his quarterback, and he has not been very good with. I would start Waddle over Julio. I mean, you got to see something, but let's not.
He was good with Waddle last week.
What's that?
He was good with Waddle last week.
What were the final numbers?
8 for 82 or something on 12 targets.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. But most of the time, it's been pretty bad.
Like, would we think Julio Jones fantasy points per game this year, or Jalen Waddle with Jacoby Brissett fantasy points per game?
Jalen Waddle last week might have had what Julio Jones has had in his last 3 games.
That's a good question, because it is Waddle.
Yeah, for sure.
He hasn't caught a touchdown with Brissett, has he?
That match Julio's total for the year.
That would match.
None.
Yeah, Saints DST.
Imagine Julio not scoring touchdowns. That's weird.
Well, and Ryan Tannehill not throwing touchdowns. That actually is weird. All right, Saints DST 7th and 8th for Jamie and Dave, 13th for Heath, but I'm not going to call you out on it. Heath, you've got perfect DST rankings this week. Not a thing you should change.
Am I the only one with the Titans over the Saints?
They're back to back for me.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We've got the NFC home games tomorrow. We've got a live stream at 2 p.m. Eastern today on YouTube, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. We will help you set your lineups. Have a great day. And
you showing up to that one?
Yes, I am. Enjoy the day. Well, I don't know. I don't really want to. No, I do. I can't wait. I missed the Tuesday night one. I can't wait to get back there for the Thursday stream. And thank you, Jamie, for making me feel guilty.